Leftist ideology is an absolutely, utterly incoherent mess. And we got a couple articles from Breitbart today that really highlight that. And I wanted to kind of break down all of the ways that what they say makes absolutely no sense. So we have this here from Refuse Fascism. Groups call for 60 days of protest to oust demented bully Donald Trump. And so we have hundreds gather in downtown Chicago on Saturday as part of a nationwide protest against Donald Trump and Mike Pence. The group Refuse Fascism organized protests in 23 cities across the country, including Chicago, where many people wore Trump masks and held signs that read, "Flush the turd," according to WBBM News Radio. Flush the turd. And then they wonder why the left can never get their messaging right when they say stupid things like flush the turd. There is absolutely no substance to that whatsoever. And I think it goes back to also why we talk about how the left can't meme. It's because they can't get their messaging right. There's no coherent through line to their ideology. And so it's really become increasingly clear that the right is so censored because in the free market of ideas, the left can't win. They have to cheat. So they have to ban us from the conversation in order to even get their people to hear their message. And that's also why they live in echo chambers. They live in these bubbles. They have to overtake institutions wholly and kick out anybody who does not adhere to the ideology, because if you start getting adversarial ideas, oppositional ideas involved, people with any sense of reason are not going to buy into the leftist ideology. And we're seeing that in the election process, which I'll be breaking down even further in my next video. So let's go ahead and continue here. In its vision statement, Refuse Fascism called for 60 days of struggle beginning Saturday, September 5th. Now, it's an interesting choice of words, 60 days of struggle. So struggle for who? Because this seems to be a pretty clear reference, I think, to 60 days of struggle sessions. And we have been seeing that more and more and more. These communist and really almost fascistic struggle sessions were used by communist China, but they are using fascistic methods to attack people. And we've been seeing it increasingly. We saw that crowd of people that were throwing paint on that old woman. They were all standing by with their fists raised, and she's just sitting there looking at them, refusing to go along. And they're all sitting there with their fists raised. And if you compare the pictures, there's a great thing, or a great meme that showed a picture of Germany in the 1930s, and you had all the people with their hands up doing that salute, and then there was one person with their hands down, and it said fascism then. And then it showed a picture of today where you see all of these Black Lives Matter and Antifa rioters sitting there going up to people. They've all got their fists in the air, and then that one person doesn't. It really is a mirror image, and yet they project onto us that we are the fascists. And we've also been seeing these struggle sessions in city government. So in Seattle, they're having all of these racial bias trainings. The white privilege trainings that only white people have to go to them. But you have to go there and you have to admit how you yourself have negatively impacted a POC in the last couple months. And until you do that, you don't get to complete your training, and you're stuck there, or you'll likely get fired. So I have a feeling that this 60 days of struggle really means 60 days of struggle sessions. So by October, there needs to... Oh, excuse me. By October, there needs to be a situation in this country where protests happen day after day. Protests that make visceral the demand that Trump and Pence must go. Sorry. Swallowed down the wrong tube there. So, do these people follow the news at all? Do they have any clue what has been going on in the nation? Because we have had protests and violent riots, actually. Protests and violent riots day after day after day since May 25th, with the passing of George Floyd. That's over 100 days, and they're talking about it like it's something new that they need to start. Is there any... isn't there even a far-left organization called Democracy Now? I mean, in a democracy, which we aren't, we're a republic with democratic processes, you don't get to just take to the streets and tell people what must happen. So then when they're sitting there saying that Trump and Pence must go, yeah, I'm sorry, you don't have the right or the authority to do that. It's just an authoritarian mob. They are throwing democracy out the window, but of course they call themselves names like Democracy Now! Because this is rules for radicals. This is Saul Alinsky tactics, that you always accuse your opponents of doing precisely what you're doing, and you label yourself the exact opposite of what you're doing. It's insidious. And so let's go down. RF does not see that all or even most of these would be called by RF. That's, what is it called? Refuse Fascism? Yeah, Refuse Fascism. So they say that not all of these or even most of these are going to be called by Refuse Fascism, but that unity is built on the basis of growing determination of people to stay in the streets and refuse to accept this illegitimate regime. Okay. So this isn't a regime, first of all. This is an administration duly elected by the people of the United States of America, actually through democratic processes. And, I mean, at this point, you have to think that this is just psychosis-ridden mentality that is caused by years of fake news, fake media-driven narratives that get people to buy into these ideas. And then it drives them nuts to the point where they are completely detached from reality and they do not have any ability to discern fact from fiction. They don't have any ability to tell what is coherent and what isn't. I mean, I see people on the left try to use analogies all the time, and it's an utter failure. They'll see one thing that is very nuanced, very multifaceted, and they see one thing where they can connect the dots, and they're like, these are the exact same. And then you're like, well, no, actually, it's different this way, and this way. And they can't make those connections. Their brains literally do not work that way. And, speaking of a call for unity, we also have another article here from Breitbart. And, so let's see here. Oh, gotta let this load. I just had to restart my computer. So, the Big 12 to air anti-racist social messages during games. Okay, so it's official. Sports are dead. We can't even enjoy the wonderful world of athletic competition without being inundated by political indoctrination from far-left Marxists anymore. We shouldn't even be surprised that they are so hell-bent on taking the fun out of sports. I mean, think about what sports represent. It's the best of the best in unbridled competition to beat each other for the trophy that only one can win. It is the epitome, the outright personification of meritocracy. And the left hates meritocracies. There's a reason why the majority of sports fans are center-right. They enjoy the competition. They enjoy the victory. And they're actually able to suffer the defeat without crying and getting all upset. Without taking your ball and going home. And it's always funny. Have you ever heard those people that, they don't like sports and they call every sport sports ball? Those people always tend to be on the left because the left doesn't like sports. But what baffles me is how many of these athletes and athletic organizations who say, they don't have a better understanding of how this ideology is tearing apart, is actually counteracting the very core of everything they've dedicated their lives to. It makes no sense. So, scrolling down here, they say each of our schools will be doing a unity message as part of our pre-game show. And there's that unity word again. It's more incoherency from the leftist ideology. I mean, you cannot have a worldview that is entirely shaped by things that make us different. Our race, our gender, our orientation, and then parse us out into all these monolithic hierarchies of victimhood, and then turn around and preach about unity. Everything they do divides us as people. They don't understand that we are all under the umbrella of Americans. They divide us. And then they have the gall to go out and preach unity and say that they are out for unity. They think we're stupid. So, the group is also reassessing whether players will continue to be required to stay in the locker rooms as the national anthem is played. Many want players to be able to take the field for the anthem so that they can protest against the country at that time. You should know you're alienating your fan base when you have to force your players to stay in the locker room because you know how bad the optics are when they kneel for the anthem. How many of your fans can't stand it, seeing players on their knees during the national anthem. They know how bad the optics are. But still, it makes it preposterously dumb to then pepper your program with critical race theory ideology that's fueling this entire kneeling protest. They're still going to go out. You know, they're keeping the players in the locker room, supposedly at least so far. But then they're still going to go out and they're going to preach this anti-racism, critical race theory, social justice ideology in their messaging. This is not one of those things where you can have it both ways. They say that players want to be able to take the field for the national anthem so they can protest against the country. Well, what about those who want to stand for the country? Do these colleges, these academic institutions have any respect for that? And notice the terminology. Protest against the country. For years, we were told with Colin Kaepernick that he's just protesting police brutality, that it's not about protesting the country, even though the flag is the symbol of the country and not a symbol of the police. It's almost like they're lying to us. But, you know, of course, we knew that from the beginning. Again, these people think we're stupid. And so the commissioner also exclaimed that the country is suffering under systemic racism. I think that systemic racism is not going to go away anytime soon, but hopefully we can make some progress, and that's certainly our intent. Well, how can systemic racism go away? Not even because it's just a made-up thing to begin with, but let's say that they get everything that they are currently demanding. Do you think that they're going to look around with their hands on their hips and a smile on their face and say, "We did it"? No. They are just going to change the definition of systemic racism just like they did with the original definition of the original racism. They're just going to keep on going with their struggle sessions. Which brings us back to our first article, the Refuse Fascism article. So, talking about 60 days of struggle, they say, no one can say that this can't lead to a situation where Trump is driven out before the elections. But short of that, sustained protests in October can and must lead to a situation where on election day, people don't just vote against Trump in big numbers, but there are mobilized people/forces prepared to oppose with massive, sustained, nonviolent protests the fascist forces we know Trump is about to unleash. How delusional are these people? Do you think Trump is just going to turn on the TV and see a sea of black-clad commies in the streets and say, well, you know, maybe I'll just pack it in and sell out my massive supporter base and hand the country over to these communist agitators? I don't think that's going to happen. These people are absolutely nuts if they think that's the case. Are they even paying attention? Because the more that they go out to the streets, the more we are inundated with these communist Black Lives Matter protests, the more support they're garnering for Trump. These people are giving Trump all the election fodder he needs. But they have no idea what is going on. But Trump has the American people on their side. They think that they can just go out into the streets and see a whole bunch of people, and a couple thousand people, and think that that is going to reflect the majority of this country. But it doesn't. The American people are sick and tired of these fuckwits. They talk about these fascist forces that they know Trump is going to unleash, but when? When is he going to unleash these fascist forces? They've been at this shit for 3.5 months. If Trump was the fascist that they say he is, these people wouldn't even still be drawing breath, and we wouldn't have an election coming up in November. The fact that they're still alive is all the proof we need that Trump is not a fascist. It's absolute incoherency. It does not make sense. Meanwhile, these people are running around mobbing people, forcing them to put their fists in the air and confirm their little LARP, like a bunch of brown-shirted fascists themselves. Again, the incoherency is staggering. Speaking at the Los Angeles protest on Saturday, a group member, Sarah Taylor, called President Trump a demented bully and accused him of building concentration camps, brandishing nuclear weapons, and denying science. Concentration camps? What concentration camps are they talking about? These people support communist China, who has literal concentration camps. I mean, Disney just thanked the guards in the Xinjiang province at the concentration camps for I guess, helping them with filming Mulan. They were listed in the credits as a special thanks. The guards at Chinese concentration camps. But these people support China. They support communism. I mean, you cannot parse out any sense from these people. And aiming nukes? Or what did he say? They're brandishing nuclear weapons? Trump is the first president that we have not started a war under since George H.W. Bush. Maybe even before that. I don't know, did Reagan start any wars? I don't think he did. But he's the first president. He is trying to bring our troops home. He is trying to put an end to the military-industrial complex. And yet they're sitting here saying that he's the fascist. He's building concentration camps. He's brandishing nuclear weapons. Again, everything that they are doing, they project onto Trump. And then they claim they're doing the opposite. All this will get far worse if the fascist regime is allowed a second term. This stuff doesn't even exist. It can't get worse because it doesn't even exist. And in fact, I'm sure what they're talking about with the concentration camps are the things at the border, which of course were implemented by Barack Obama. Well, I've heard reports that, they've been sent to Mexico now. They have to stay on the Mexican side. And I hear that they're now being put up in hotels. That they're living it good. So I don't know what they're talking about. Getting worse? Everything is getting better under Trump. And that's what they hate the most. Is that it's getting better under Trump, and it's living proof that their ideology is a complete and utter incoherent mess and a failure. The left is like a kite in the wind, just flapping around whatever direction the wind blows, just flying on a prayer that it doesn't crash into the ground. Conservative constitutionalism is like a sailboat. They can adjust their sails and maintain course and get to a destination. It's not hectic. It's not flapping around in the wind. So, this tweet says, "Don't wait till Trump steals the election. We have to act now like the people of Hong Kong and Belarus." This is one of the most insane tweets I have ever seen. Trump is going to steal the election? Trump didn't change the election rules at the 11th hour by trying to implement universal mail-in balloting that has zero chain of custody or no control over the chain of custody and zero security measures. I mean, we have ample evidence that everything the American people have been put through this year, from the COVID lockdowns that cost millions of people their livelihoods, to the nationwide turmoil and riots, have all been schemed up by the Democrats to steal the election. We even had a Democrat whistleblower who admitted to his role in massive voter fraud. And it said that when it comes to mail-in balloting, voter fraud is the rule, not the exception. And he detailed all the different ways that he would commit voter fraud on behalf of the Democrats. He even talked about how Michael Bloomberg paid $174 per vote to buy the election for his third mayoral term. We know the Democrats play dirty tricks when it comes to these elections and these politics. And yet we're supposed to sit here and believe that it's Donald Trump? No. No. And comparing yourself to the people of Hong Kong? Is that a fucking joke? The people of Hong Kong are sitting there waving American flags. The same American flags that these people and Refuse Fascism burn. And they wave these communist flags. The same flags that the people of Hong Kong are fighting against. Yet they have the gall to compare themselves to the people of Hong Kong fighting against China. They are China. We are Hong Kong. Utter incoherence. I mean, these people aren't even on planet Earth anymore. You can't even have a conversation with them. You can't even point out these things to them. You can, but they're not going to see it. They're not going to accept it. Nothing they say makes sense. Nothing reflects reality. But it's like Lenin said, Vladimir Lenin, if you repeat a lie often enough, it becomes truth. And these people think, or these people, it's not even these people, because these people have been the blank slate that the communist ideologues have drawn their map on. But now they are the minions. You know, there are two types of leftists. There are opportunists, and there are useful idiots. These people are the useful idiots. The opportunists know that the left is utterly incoherent, and they just rewire these people's brains. So they go out and they commit chaos. And then from the chaos, they try to seize power. Those are the two types of leftists. Opportunists and useful idiots. Either way, it is utterly incoherent. And they rely on, the opportunists rely on this incoherence. Because it creates that chaotic mentality where their useful idiots can't make any sense of anything. And it makes them malleable. It makes them controllable. Anyways, guys, that's the video. Go ahead and hit the like button. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share this video. Let people know what's going on. And also, you know, so people can understand what's going on in the brains of these lefties. Also, don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Ram Thorburn. Also, there are links to my Subscribestar, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.